إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى أهله ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، فإن خير الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. We give praise and thanks to Almighty Allah. We ask Him to shower His blessings upon the noblest of mankind, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Last week we took the hadith on the Minbar and its relevance to the section that we are in, the section of Babul Jumu'ah, section of Jumu'ah, and that is under Kitaab As-Salaat. So inshallah today we'll take the hadith of Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhu. It's a short hadith and we should not have any problem committing it to memory. So it says, عن Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma, from Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma, أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال, the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said. So this is a part to memorize. That's very short. من جاء منكم الجمعة من جاء منكم الجمعة فليغتسل 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 من جاء منكم الجمعة فليغتسل. So this is a hadith. Man, whoever, ja'a, comes, minkum, from you, from amongst you, al-jumu'ata, to the Jumu'ah, فَلْيَغْتَسِلْ, he should have ghusl, he should perform ghusl. So whoever amongst you comes to the Jumu'ah should have or must have a ghusl, a bath. So the this is a conditioned or a conditional statement. It has this one of the words for conditioning a statement, and that is man, whoever does what? Ja'a minkum al-jumu'ata. So this condition is whoever comes to the Jumu'ah, then this is what he must do. If you meet this condition, then you must do this. So this is called the shart, and this is called the jawabu shart. This is the condition, and this is the obligation once you meet the condition. So this is the thing. Inshallah, next week we'll talk about this man. We talked about it briefly last week, and that is who is Jumu'ah obligated upon and who it isn't obligated upon. However, this one is man ja'a minkum. So even if it's not obligatory upon you, but you're coming through the Jumu'ah, then you should do what? فَلْيَغْتَسِلْ. You should, or you must do ghusl. What makes it compulsory there is this lam. It's called lam al-amr. It is a lam of command. And we know this is a statement of command because this ends with a sukun, the last word there. So فَلْيَغْتَسِلْ. He must have ghusl. من جاء منكم الجمعة فليغتسل. 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 So now this hadith is in Bukhari and also in Muslim. What's let's go to Tanbih-ul-Afhaam and look at the Rawi and Mawdu' al-Hadith. The Rawi of the Hadith is Abdullah bin Umar radiyallahu anhuma, may Allah be pleased with him and his father. سبق ترجمته في حديث رقم 81. We have taken his biography previously in the hadith number 81. Mawdu' al-Hadith. What's the place of this hadith in the Sharia? It is Bayanu Hukmi al-Iktisali li Salati al-Jum'ah. It explains to us the ruling of Iktisal, having a bath. We know there are only 5 rulings. Is it wajib? Is it mustahab? Is it mubah? Is it makruh? Is it haram? So it explains, this hadith explains to us which one of these 5 categories al-iqtisal, ghusl, falls into. Iqtisal li salat al-jumu'ah. So iqtisal li salat al-jumu'ah, having a bath for salat al-jumu'ah, it gives us the bayan of the hukm, the explanation of the ruling on it. We'll skip sharhul kalimat because one thing, when ja'a minkum al-jum'ah, whoever comes, you will have to have that bath before coming. So therefore, it's not that when you get to the mosque, now have your bath, but rather once you've made up your mind to come to the mosque, ay arada al-maji'. So once you intend to head for the mosque, then have your bath. So, and the Jumu'ah here is the Salat al-Jumu'ah, not just the day of the Jumu'ah. So somebody who is not obligated to come to the Jumu'ah Salah, is it compulsory on him or not? This hadith does not mention that. It talks about someone coming to the Jumu'ah. There's another hadith that talks about Ghusl Yawm al-Jumu'ah, wajibun ala kulli muhtalim. That ghusl on the day of Jumu'ah is compulsory on every adult. On every adult. Of course, that is also defined by is the adult a slave or a free person, as a person, a male or a female, and all that. So man ja'a minkum al-jum'ata falyaqtasil. So let's go to sharhu al-ijmali. It says يخبر عبد-Allaah ibn Umar رضي الله عنهما أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أمر من أراد المجيء إلى الصلاة الجمعة أن يغتسل. Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma here is telling that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam commanded whoever wishes to go to the Salat al-Jumu'ah to have a bath. ليطهر جميع بدنه من أوساخ ta'abbudan lillahi azza wa jal. So it should clean the entirety, and ghusl is to clean the entirety of one's body from death, ta'abbudan, as an act of worship, lillah azza wa jal, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wa itqa'an li rawa'ih al-awsakh fi hadha al-majma' kabir, and to also free himself from unpleasant odor that might arise from him in this gathering, in this big gathering of the Muslims, in this large gathering of the Muslims. Okay, let's see if there's anything in so yeah. So the hadith again, man ja'a minkumul jum'ata falyaghtasil. Man ja'a minkumul jum'ata falyaghtasil. Man ja'a minkumul jum'ata falyaghtasil. So once you've made up your mind to go to the Jumu'ah, then it is compulsory for you to have your ghusl, to have a ghusl. So al-ma'na al-ijmali from Sheikh Al-Basaam in Tayseer-ul says al-Jumu'ah al-ijtima' li-salat al-Jumu'ah mashhad azim, says the gathering to observe the Jumu'ah prayers is a great a great gathering, wa majma' kabir, and it's a big one, min majami' al-muslimin, from the gatherings of the Muslims. We gather in many smaller mosques for the 5 daily prayers, but in Jumu'ah the mosques are usually fewer. In fact, during the time of Prophet ﷺ, there was one mosque that the people would go to, and that was the Prophet ﷺ's mosque. And it wasn't until Islam, expanded, a lot, that you now had, multiple mosques in the same province observing, wherein Jumu'ah prayers will be, was observed. حيث يأتون لأدائها من أنحاء البلد التي يسكنونها. And in this Jumu'ah, ideally, the people will come from different, provinces of the town to, gather in this large space dedicated to the Jumu'ah prayers. So the gathering is usually larger than we'll find in many of our Jumu'ah mosques today. ومثل هذا المحفل الذي يظهر فيه شعائر الإسلام. And in this type of celebration, it is a small Eid for the Muslims. Then signposts of Islam become, displayed. You see the Muslims in their garments, the way they dress, the way they greet themselves, the way they gather, the things that they say in the Jumu'ah, is being, broadcast for people who are not Muslims to hear, and things like this. So you get a glimpse of what Islam is at this gathering. وأبهة المسلمين يكون الآتي إليه على أحسن الهيئة. Then it is one of the things for the Muslim to do is that if he's coming for the Jumu'ah, is for him to appear in the best of hayha, best of appearances. وَأَتْيَبْ الرَّائِحَةِ, and in the best of odors. وأنظف الجسد, and in the cleanest, of body parts. It should be clean, it should smell nice, it should have a nice appearance, clothes and everything. لذا أمر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أن يغتسلوا عند إتيان لها. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for this reason, commanded that the people should have a bath when going to the masjid. لئلا يكون فيهم أوساخ وروائح يؤذون بها المصلين والملائكة الحاضرين لسماع الخطبة والذكر. So when you clean your body, have a good, odor around you, good fragrance around you, and you have the best of appearance, then you will not retain any filth, whether material filth or the odor of filth that will, harm those who are praying, the musallin and the malaika and the angels that are present to listen to the khutbah. The angels are present during the Jumu'ah to listen to the khutbah. They stand with a book of records at the door and record as the people go in. Once the Imam mounts the Minbar and begins this khutbah, they close their books and sit to listen to the khutbah. So this, so not to harm those who are present, is one of the benefits of having one's ghusl. Now, اختلاف العلماء. Sheikh Al-Basaam, as usual, will bring different opinion amongst the scholars, if there's any, on the issue. On this issue, there is. One, it says, اختلف العلماء في غسل الجمعة. The scholars differ with respect to ghusl on the day of Jumu'ah. Where does it fall? So where does it fall? So فذهب الظاهرية إلى أنه واجب. The Zahiriya, the literary school of thoughts, a school of jurisprudence rather, they say that it is wajib, based on the literal, wordings of the hadith. Man ja'a minkum al-jumu'ah fal-yaktasib. The lam is lam al-amr. We know that because the last letter has a sukun. That is what always happens when you have a command being issued out, either a physically visible sukun or an implied sukun. Mustadilina bi hadith, and they also use as an hadith. They also use as evidence the Zahiriya, another hadith where it says غسل يوم الجمعة غسل يوم الجمعة يوم الجمعة واجب على كل محتلم. So ghusl on the day of Jumu'ah is wajib ala kulli muhtalim, on everyone that has attained purity. And this hadith is muttafaqun alayhi in Bukhari and Muslim. So these are the evidences of the Zahiriya. When you look at it linguistically, analyze the text, it speaks of nothing other than wujub, that it is wajib. If you look at other hadith like this one, muttafaqun alayh is also tells you the ruling that wajib. Now, وَذَهَبَ الْجُمْهُورِ. However, the majority of the scholars are of the opinion, إِلَى إِسْتِحْبَابِهِ. They say that it is mustahab. They say that it is mustahab. Why? وَأَنَّهُ غَيْرَ wajib. That it is not wajib. Why? مُسْتَدِلِينَ بِحَدِيثِ الْحَسَنِ. they use hadith Hasan. So we already begin to analyze on our charts over here. Wajib, Mustahab, minority, majority. As we said, that doesn't really carry weight. Linguistically, Wajib has a plus, minus for linguistically in Mustahab. That's Wajib, Mustahab. Hadith, that gives the ruling also in favor of Wajib, not in favor of this. Then the strength of the hadith. This one for Wajib, Muttafaqun alayhi. For Muttafaqun alayhi, Sahih. That for Mustahab, it is Hasan. Authentic, but not as authentic as what? Sahih. Hadith that are Sahih are called Sahih li dhatihi. The hadith that is authentic in and of its own merits, due to its own intrinsic merits. When you look at the chain of transmission, when you look at the text and all that. A hadith that is Hasan is Sahih li ghayrihi. It is not intrinsically Sahih, but it is Sahih due to extraneous evidences. So, like when you look at the individual hadith, you see that there's some slight weaknesses in them. But when you bring them together, bring a couple of hadith of that nature together, then they strengthen themselves. Then they they are what you put in the category of Hasan. And this is one of the major works that Imam al-Tirmidhi, did in his Jami'ah. Now, so the hadith that is Hasan, that the majority hold on to say the ghuslu on Yawm al-Jumu'ah is not compulsory, rather it is mustahab. There's this, it says, Man tawadda'a Yawm al-Jumu'ati fabiha wa ni'ma. Whoever does wudu on Yawm al-Jumu'ah, then how nice that is. Fabiha wa ni'ma. How nice that is. Wa man yaqtasal fal-ghuslu afdal. Whoever does ghuslu, then ghuslu is better. Whoever does ghuslu, then ghuslu is better. Rawahu al-khamsa. قال ابن دقيق العيد ولا يقوم سند هذا الحديث الأحاديث الموجبة. Imam Ibn Daqiq al-Aid, he said in his book Ahkaam Al-Ahkam that ولا يقوم سند هذا الحديث الأحاديث الموجبة, that the chain of this hadith cannot be compared. This chain of this Hasan hadith cannot be compared to the chain of the hadith that say it is compulsory. Those ones are authentic in and of themselves. You also find in Bukhari and Muslim, Muttafaqun alayhi, agreed upon hadith. وَإِنْ كَانَ مَشْهُورٌ فِي سَنَدِهِ صَحِيحًا. It says, even if we hold on to the position that is not all this hadith, not all scholars of hadith say that it is Hasan. Some of the scholars of hadith say that it is Sahih also. Imam Ibn Daqiq al-Aid say, even if we say it is Sahih hadith that are intrinsically Sahih, they have levels. Says, even if we say that it is Sahih, that it is still not at the level of the hadith that say that the ghusl Yawm al-Jumu'ah is compulsory. So therefore, we find that the evidences are so far tilting towards wujub, the hadith that say that ghusl Yawm al-Jumu'ah is compulsory. The majority وعجبوا عن الحديث الذي استدل به الظاهرية بأنه يفيد تأكيد السنية. The majority say that the hadith that the Zahiriya and the minority of the scholars are holding on to, not only the Zahiriya hold this position, they say that those ahadith, like Ghuslu Yawm al-Jumu'ah, wajibun ala kulli muhtalim, Ghuslu on the day of Jumu'ah is compulsory on every adult, everyone that has attained puberty. They say these ahadith only serve the purpose of ta'keed as-sunniyah, of emphasizing the sunnah. So not only that it is mustahab, but it is an emphasized sunnah, emphasized mustahab. So what comes out to a student immediately here is these statements that it is ta'keed needs evidence. Two, this statement that it is an emphasis of the sunnah deviates from what is apparent. What is apparent is what must first be adopted. It is only when it is not possible that one now deviates from it. If somebody says, as I was coming, I saw the lion. The clear wordings of that text is that he saw an animal called a lion. But if he proceeds and says, he says salam to me and we hugged and asked, about, and we exchanged pleasantries and all that, then we know, oh, it is not the lion, an animal, but somebody with a nickname, a kunya, the lion. So when the context accommodates or requires that we pivot from the default understanding, the default apparent meaning of the text, that is when we do so. Whether the Zahiriya, get to a fault is that they stick to the apparent meaning of the text, even when context does not support it. So for instance, we've given this example a couple of times. The Zahiriya do not see anything wrong in somebody doing ghusl in, in stagnant water that has feces in it, or stagnant water where somebody urinated in a bottle, for instance, and decanted the water in stagnant water. When you bring the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said, لا يبولن أحدكم في الماء الدائم ثم يغتسل به ثم يغتسل فيه, أو in another narration ثم يغتسل منه, that the Prophet ﷺ said none of you should urinate in stagnant water and thereafter do ghusl in it, or do ghusl from it, that is, take a portion of it and do ghusl from that. So they say, yes, this hadith does not affect defecation. It only talks about urination. And this hadith does not talk about somebody decanting urine into water. It talks about somebody urinating into water directly. So this is where they go to fault, where they don't allow the context to where it is necessary to cause them to pivot from the default understanding of the text. So therefore, whenever we see a migration from the default understanding of the text, and we look for a context immediately, is there a context that permits that? If there's no sound context that permits that, then we will shy away from that position. We'll shy away from that position. So the majority of the scholars say what is apparent there, where the Prophet ﷺ said that ghusl on Yawm al-Jumu'ah is compulsory on every adult. They say it is just emphasizing that it is mustahab. When the word was used explicitly, wajib. Now, وأن المعنى واجب في الحديث الحق. So they say that the meaning, why they say this is that in the hadith, wajib also means al-haq, that it is, the truth, or it is, something real. Ghuslu on Yawm al-Jumu'ah is something, real. So that's how they do ta'wil, interpretation of this hadith. كما يقال لأحد كما يقال أحد لأحد لك علي حق واجب. Just like somebody would say to another, upon you is a right that is compulsory. So this is haq used here, and this is wajib used here. So they say, upon me is a right, that you have a right upon me that is compulsory. So they say this wajib here becomes, mustahab. As we see, that understanding of the majority is drawing things a little bit much. How anna dhalika fi awwal al-Islam. Or they say that there's a case of abrogation here, that the compulsion was in the early days of Islam. Now, again, before you can make a statement of abrogation, you must have irreconcilable texts, and you must have chronology. So you know the time when this one was said, you know the time when that one was said, so that you now say, okay, it is the later one that abrogated the earlier one, not the other way around. But none of that is available here. The texts are reconcilable. That one thing is better than the other, like the hadith that the majority hold on to, that man tawadda'a yawm al-jum'ah, this hadith over here, fabiha wa ni'ma, wa man iktasala fal-ghuslu afdal. That whoever does wudu on Yawm al-Jumu'ah, then how nice that is. But if you do ghuslu, that is better. It doesn't say that ghuslu is not compulsory. It doesn't say that ghuslu is not compulsory. For instance, if I say, if a woman wears a cloth that covers all parts of her body, but not her head, that is better than somebody who wears bikinis or something like that. But wearing the full hijab is better. Has that in any way changed the compulsion of the full hijab for the woman? It hasn't. It's only saying that this is, better than this. It's only saying this is better than this, or this is better than that. So that is
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam, yeah. No. Faddal.
But the Fabiha wa Niyama is like, it's okay, right?
No, you say it's just like when you say ni'ma abd. Say how nice that is. Like when Allah was praying, subhanahu wa ta'ala was praising Nabi Ayub.
That's what I'm saying.
No.
Saying that how nice that is, that means that's okay, or that's not the implication. I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
I get you. That is one of the possible meanings. Like if somebody is required to do to get 50%, for instance, is currently getting 10% in his exams, and he has a couple of tasks to do, let's say 5 tasks to do, in order to improve his grades. And you see him now doing 2 out of the 5, meaning his grades will increase, not so. And you say, these 2 that you're doing, fabiha wa ni'ma, how nice that is. However, doing the 5 in order to cross to 50% is better. That is one of the meanings that are extractable from fabiha wa ni'ma, how nice this is. One of the meanings that is also extractable from it is that this is the 2 steps that you have taken is are okay. So, and we've said severally that when you have a statement or a word having more than one meaning, then you can give credence to one meaning over the other, except you have external evidence to support what you want to do. So if we bring this hadith of whoever does wudu on Yawm al-Jumu'ah, how nice that is, and ghusl is but whoever does ghusl, then that is better. If we bring this hadith and it has these 2 possible meanings extractable from it, then we'll now ask ourselves, is there hadith to support one of these understandings over the other? So we see a hadith that says, ghusl yawm al-jumu'ah wajibun ala kulli muhtalim. The ghusl on the day of Jumu'ah is compulsory on every adult. We also see the hadith of the bab, the hadith of the section that we are talking about, that says, man ja'akumul jumu'ata falyaghtasil. Whoever amongst you does comes to Jumu'ah, he should do ghusl. He must do ghusl, the lam al-amr. So which of these 2 extractable meanings from fabiha wa ni'ma do these other ahadith support? Malam Mirza? Malam Mirza?
Yes.
Which one does it support?
Yeah, it will tend to support the one that says, like, yeah, it is just better.
That is Mustahab, or that it is wajib? Which one do those other hadiths support?
Yeah, they support that it is wajib.
Barakallahu fiqh. So it is taking these, we're taking the evidences together. But if you were to look at this evidence alone, then it is plausible. It is possible what the majority are saying, because it is one of the extractable meanings. That is, you see it, for instance, you see a child doing something better than what he was doing before, but less than what he is supposed to do. You want to encourage that child, and you say, how nice what you're doing, but you don't want to stop there. You want to tell him there's something beyond that. So you say, but if you can do this, that is better. So he's encouraged by the words of encouragement that you've given, and he's guided to what is better because you've given him that guidance. So that is what this hadith. So with this, we see that there's no contradiction between this hadith and the hadith that talk about compulsion. Barakallahu fiik. So let's وعجبوا عن حديث. We'll talk about that. أنا ذلك في أول الإسلام. So the majority say that this is in the beginning of Islam. To go with this, then we need chronology. We need a timeline. That is not available. يوم كان الصحابة يلبسون ثياب ثقيلة الخشنة. They said at a time when the companions were wearing clothes that were thick and coarse. يعرقون and therefore they were يعرقون, and they would therefore sweat a lot. They were living in these parts of the world. تظهر منهم رائحة كريهة, and for that reason, unpleasant odor will emanate from them. Now, there's actually a hadith, an athar, not a hadith, from I think Abdullah ibn Umar, yes, that gives credence to this. There's actually an athar from Abdullah ibn Umar that gives credence to this. We'll mention that shortly. However, when something is the sababun nuzul of something, it doesn't mean that it is restricted to that instance. It doesn't mean that it is restricted to that instance. For instance, we talked a few classes ago about Ibn Sirma, Qais Ibn Sirma, who, when he came home, in the beginning of Islam, when you're fasting, once it is Maghrib, you can break your fast. However, if you don't eat before sleeping, once you sleep, then you can't eat again. Whether you've eaten at after Maghrib or you haven't eaten after Maghrib, once you've eaten, once you've slept, you can't eat again. You have to wait till the next Maghrib. Even if you sleep between Maghrib and Isha and you wake up, you can't eat again. You have to start fasting until the next Maghrib. Qais ibn Sirma came home one day, asked his wife for food. There wasn't food at home. She went to get him food. While waiting, he slept off. She brought food and saw that he had slept. Said, how unfortunate, because you can't eat it now. So, walking the next day, he collapsed and fainted. It was brought to the Prophet ﷺ's notice, and Allah revealed, وَحِلَّتْ لَكُمْ لَيْلَةَ الصِّيَامُ رَفَثُ إِلَى نِسَائِكُمْ, up until وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَكُمْ خَيْطُ الْأَبْيَضِ مِنَ الْخَيْطِ الْأَسْوَدِ مِنَ الْفَجْرِ. Eat and drink until the white thread becomes distinct from the black thread of Fajr to you. So that action or that scenario or incident of Qais ibn Sirma was someone who came home and didn't meet, and slept before, before he could eat. Came home after Maghrib and slept before eating. The verse that was revealed did not restrict itself to that incident alone, but is applicable to anyone. To anyone, whether you slept after Maghrib or you didn't sleep after Maghrib. فَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَكُمْ خَيْطُ الْأَبْيَضِ مِنَ الْخَيْطِ الْأَسْوَدِ مِنَ الْفَجْرِ. So that if we say that in the beginning of Islam, people were putting on coarse and thick clothing, and that made them sweat, then therefore things became better and they no longer needed ghusl. When they were wearing thick and coarse clothing, they sweated a lot, and ghusl was made compulsory on them. And now, after a while, things got better and they didn't need it anymore. So ghusl was no longer compulsory for them. One, this is in need of a hadith dalil. Two is that problem of sweating is not limited to wearing thick and coarse clothing alone. If you're in summer, not everybody has the luxury of, praying in a mosque where there's AC and things like that. Let's cast our mind back to where we're coming from. There are how many mosques, have ACs? So most of the masajid till today do not have ACs. And especially in regions like this during the summer, there's no how you want to walk from wherever you're coming from, your place of work or your house to the mosque, and you will not sweat. So the sweating is still there as a constant till as we speak today. So it's not the clothes that made the ghusl compulsory or necessary. Rather, it was the sweat and the awsakh and the filth. So till today, you still see, mechanics coming to Jumu'ah and different salawats too, with dirty clothing, their mechanic, garment, overalls. You still see it till today. So that is what it necessitates the ghusl, not the thick or the light clothing. So, so the majority, they say the clothing is what, if we say that it is compulsory, then it must be understood that this was in the early days of Islam, when there wasn't much money to go around to buy good clothes. But poverty was prevalent then, and it is still prevalent till today. It is still prevalent till today. فَلَمَّا وَسَعَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ لَبِسُوا خَفِيفَ ثِيَابٍ. When Allah made things easy for them, then they started wearing light clothing. نسخ الحكم min wujub ila al-istihbab. So they say, therefore, the ruling on ghusl changed, was abrogated. It no longer became compulsory, and it became mustahab. Now look at the position of the majority again. Their position is an if-or position. They are saying it is either that the ahadith that are talking about compulsion of ghusl are emphasizing sunnah, that it is a sunnah. They're emphasizing the sunniyah of ghusl. Or it is that what they are saying is that it is wajib, but that wajib was at the beginning of Islam. So this is a shaky situation. It's either or. The other situation of wajib, the ghusl on Yawm al-Jumu'ah is wajib, is a firm position. So we can't, as Allah says, inna dhanna la yugni min al-haqqi shay'a. If or will not overturn a firm statement. So that's another minus for the position of the majority on this issue. So it says, أخرج أبو عوانة في مسنده عن ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما كان الناس يغدون في أعمالهم فإذا كانت الجمعة جاءوا وعليهم ثياب متغيرة. Said the people in the beginning used to go to their works, to their places of work. فإذا كان الجمعة, when it was the time for Jumu'ah, جاءوا, they will come to the Jumu'ah Salah, وعليهم ثياب متغيرة. They will have on them clothing that have changed due to whatever work that they were doing. If they are farming, they are doing, all the impact of whatever it is they're doing will soil their work, their clothing, and also the odor and sweat will also add to that. فشكوا ذلك لرسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. They complained about that to the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. فقال, and he said, من جاء منكم الجمعة فليغتسل. And whoever amongst you is comes to the Jumu'ah should do ghusl, must have ghusl. So this is the thing of the hadith. Now the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't say whoever amongst you has filth and and bad odor on him should do ghusl. Rather, he said man, whoever. So that covers both the people that didn't sweat and the people who had sweat, the people who had stains on their clothing and the people or on their body, and the people who didn't have stains on their body. Everybody go and have a ghusl. So the man here, whoever, covers that. So rather than being an evidence for the majority, this doesn't support, or rather supports the all-encompassing nature of the wujub. Wal-haq, the Sheikh Rahimahullah, Sheikh Al-Basaam says, the truth, أن هذه الأجوبة غير ناضحة لتأويل الحديث عن ظاهره. Says Sheikh Al-Basaam says, the truth is that all these answers of the majority or responses of the majority does not stand, to reinterpret the hadith from its apparent meaning. And ظاهره. It doesn't stand. غير ناهضة. ولهذا قال ابن القيم في الهدى. And this is why Imam Ibn Qayyim, one of the students of Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, he said in his book Al-Huda, وَوُجُوبُهُ أَقْوَى مِنْ وُجُوبِ الْوِتْرِ, says the compulsion of doing ghusl on Yawm al-Jumu'ah is more compulsory than witri, even though witri is mustahab. وَقِرَاءَةُ بَسْمَلَةِ fi Salah. And there's difference of opinion among the scholars. Can you recite Surah Basmala, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim? Is it compulsory to recite it in your recitation of Surah Al-Fatiha? We talked about that earlier. So for those who hold on to the opinion that it is, wajib, Sheikh Imam Ibn Qayyim is saying this wujub of ghusl Yawm al-Jumu'ah is still above that. Why? Because of these texts that are apparent, that to understand it other than that, what the apparent text says, you have to reinterpret. However, with respect to Basmala, each group is doing ijtihad. Each group, there's no specific, text that can't be easily argued against. So each group is, bringing evidences together from here and there to try to support its position. So it says وَقِرَاءَةِ بَسْمَلَةِ فِي الصَّلَاةِ وَوُجُوبَ الْوُضُوءِ مِنْ مَنْ مَسَّ النِّسَاءَ and وَمَسَّ الذَّكَرِ. And also it is more compulsory, or it has a higher level of compulsion than the hadith of the one who touches a woman after he has done wudu. Some of the scholars say once you touch a woman, just physical touching, your hand touches the hand of your wife, then you've lost your ghusl. Why? They say Allah says أَوْ لَامَسْتُمُ النِّسَاءَ, or if you touch women. So they say the touch is touch. Say no, it is. This is where we talk about apparent meaning and context necessitating one to pivot from that. The Zahiriya and other scholars who hold this opinion say when a man puts his hand on his wife's hand, what do you call that? Say touch. Finish. End of discussion. Touch is touch. The other said no, it is a specific type of touching that Allah is talking about here, due to extraneous evidences. Like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was praying. We're taking that hadith. He was praying in Aisha's room, and Aisha's leg was, it was a small room, so Aisha's leg was, spread out in front of him. Whenever he wanted to make sujood, he would grab her legs and take it aside, and he'll be able to do sujood on the floor. And when he rose, Aisha will straighten her legs back. And he did this. It was tahajjud. If the position that once you touching is correct, then the Prophet ﷺ had lost his ablution by this, but he didn't leave the salah. How do you explain that? So the context brought about by these, extraneous evidences necessitate that we must pivot from that meaning. So the same thing, here, the wudu of the one who touches a woman, wa massa dhakara, and someone who touches his private parts after he has done wudu. Has he lost his wudu, or he has not lost his wudu? There are different opinions among the scholars. Some say he has lost his wudu, and some say he has not lost his wudu, based on the hadith of Talq, where he asked the Prophet ﷺ about the private part, and the Prophet ﷺ said, it is a part of you. إِنَّمَا هُوَ قِطْعَةٌ مِنْكَ. It is only a part of you. So if it's a part of you, then it's like your nose. If you touch your nose, have you lost your wudu or not? So the scholars differ about that. Imam al-Qayyim is saying all these other things that I've mentioned, whether you say it's compulsory or mustahab, you are not standing on irrefutable evidence, even if you say that it is wajib, that your position, like if you touch your wife, or the hand of your wife, for instance, you've lost your ablution and wudu is compulsory. Even if you hold that position, as a person of knowledge, you know that that position is based on what? Ijtihad, deduction, not a specific clear text that says anyone who touches his wife's hands has lost his wudu. But this one here is clear. غسل يوم الجمعة واجب على كل محتلم. Ghusl on the day of Jumu'ah is wajib, is compulsory. So therefore, it is more compulsory than these other ones that the Sheikh mentioned. So this is what it says. وقال الشيخ الإسلام ابن تيمية. Imam Ibn Qayyim's teacher, Sheikh Ahmed Ibn Taymiyyah, he says in Majmu' Fatawa, وَيَجِبُ الْغُسْلُ عَلَى مَنْ لَهُ عِرْقٍ, says that it is compulsory for anyone that sweats to have ghusl. أَوْ رِيحٍ يَتَعَذَّى بِهِ غَيْرَهُ, or he has an odor that harms other than him. So there shouldn't, what he is saying is that there shouldn't be a difference of opinion with regards to someone who sweats and someone who has an unpleasant odor. We know the hadith of someone who eats garlic and someone, so it's the same thing that is served to, prevent. Don't make being in Jumu'ah uncomfortable for others. So do that which will not make Jumu'ah uncomfortable for them. And the Prophet ﷺ says, whoever eats garlic should not come to our mosque. أو كما قال. وقال البغوي, Imam al-Baghawi said in his Sharh al-Sunnah, اختلف العلماء في وجوب الغسل الجمعة مع اتفاقهم على أن الصلاة الجائز من غير الغسل. Says that the scholars differ with respect to ghusl on Yawm al-Jumu'ah. Is it compulsory or not? However, they all agree that if somebody performs Salatul Jumu'ah without having had his bath previous to that, that his salah is valid. Why is this? This position is correct. Why is it so? Somebody didn't have ghusl, yet we say that his Salatul Jumu'ah is valid. Why? Anybody? Mr. Jayala.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So, I think it seems we discussed this before. I don't know whether it's in this forum or another forum. To say that the reward for doing the usul can be separated from the reward for that of Jumu'ah.
Barakallahu fikum. Barakallahu fikum. So can somebody give me the technical word that explains what Mr. Jayala just said? Madam Mujib.
Sorry, doctor, I can't really answer now. I'm kind of with something.
Okay, no problem. Madam Tawfiq. Madam Tawfiq.
I don't have the technical word, but الفرق يعني الفرق it differentiates. I mean, is it the technical word in Arabic or what? How?
No, just in we've said it several times. We've used we've said it several times in different classes, you know, about why something like not doing your ghusl on Yamul Jumu'ah, if you hold a position that is compulsory, will not affect the validity of your salah. Malam Isa. Oh no, Isa has spoken today. Malam Sadiq.
Yeah, that it is not wajib.
It is wajib. If we the correct position that is wajib. If we take the whether we even take the position that is not wajib, why is it that if we assume that it is wajib, it's not doing it will still not affect one's Jumu'ah Salat, the validity of one's Jumu'ah Salat? Madam Marisa.
Because the hadith of the Prophet allowed that. Clearly stated in the hadith that it is allowed. This Tawfiq talking, no? The hadith clearly stated that, yeah, it is wajib, but also it is allowed to wudu, to perform the wudu.
No.
Allowed it, he permitted it with the hadith that is sahih.
Yeah, I get the hadith you're talking about. It's hadith Hassan, but that's not what I'm looking for.
Actually, I don't know how to explain it. Only that, I mean, it's not like a shart for the validity.
That is it. Shart. It is not a shart. It is not a condition. Barakallahu fiqh. Okay, the definition of shart, we have told us, a condition is something whose absence necessitates the invalidity of the action that requires it, but its presence does not necessitate the validity of the action that requires it. An example, wudu is a shart for salah, for the validity of salah. The absence of wudu necessitates the invalidity of salah. The presence of wudu does not necessarily mean that the salah is valid. The person could have intentionally prayed in another direction other than the qibla. Salah null and void. You could have intentionally left out ruku'. Salah null and void. You could have intentionally decided not to recite Surah Al-Fatiha. Salah null and void. So that he did wudu does not mean that the salah will be necessarily valid. However, once wudu is not present there, the salah, you don't ask about other things. You could have done every other thing right, but no wudu, salat is invalid. So when something has that status, it is called shart. Therefore, once that thing is not present, once that shart is not present, then that thing that is linked to the shart is invalid. In this case, Salatul Ghusl Yawmul Jumu'ah is not a shart. If it was a shart, then once you don't have your ghusl, then your Salatul Jumu'ah is null and void. However, it is not a shart. Therefore, the maximum that will be said is that since it's wajib, you have committed a sin. Because what does wajib mean? If you do it, you get rewarded. If you abandon it, you are under the threat of a punishment. That is what wajib means. Mustahab means if you do it, you get rewarded. If you abandon it, there's no punishment, there's no reward. Mubah means do it, don't do it, no punishment, no reward. Makruh, do it, there's no punishment. If you have the opportunity to do it and you don't do it, you get a reward. Haram, do it, there's punishment. Have the opportunity to do it and you don't do it, you get a reward. So the maximum that can be said is that you didn't do it, then you've committed a sin. However, it's separate from the salah. The salah is not linked to its ruling. So it is not a shart. That is why the scholars agree that unanimously that if you don't do your ghusl, your Salatul Jumu'ah is still valid. Barakallahu fikum. It's the anything. So the Sheikh Rahimahullah, Sheikh Al-Basaam, he says, فَالْأَوْلَى لِمَنْ ذَهَبَ إِلَى الْجُمْعَةِ أَلَّا يَدْعُ الْغُسْلِ. So the Sheikh says, from all this, what is best is for the one who is going to the Jumu'ah not to abandon ghusl. لأنه قد اتفق على مشروعيته. Because all the scholars are agreed that it is part of the Sharia, it is mashru'. They are agreed that it is either the category of wajib or mustahab or mubah. They are agreed about this one. They agree that it is not makruh. They agree that it is not haram. وَأَدِلَةُ وُجُوبِهِ قَوِيَّةٌ. And the evidences that say that it is compulsory are strong. وَالْإِحْتِيَاطُ أَحْسَنُ وَأَوْلَى. And if one is in doubt, ihtiyat, being careful, erring on the side of caution, ihtiyat, ahsan wa awla, is better and more, and superior, is better and superior. Qala as-Sana'ani, Imam as-Sana'ani, he said, وَهَؤُلَاءِ أَيَ الَّذِينَ أَوَّلُوا الْحَدِيثِ. He said, all the scholars who reinterpret the hadith from its apparent meaning, رَدُّوا مَعَ الْمَعْنَى وَأَغْفَلُوا الْمُحَافَظَةَ عَلَى التَّعَبُّدِ. They say, دَارُوا, not رَدُّوا, دَارُوا مَعَ الْمَعْنَى. They say they focus on the meaning that is possible to extract from the text, even though it's not the apparent meaning of the text. وَأَغْفَلُوا الْمُحَافَظَةَ عَلَى التَّعَبُّدِ. They abandon the need to preserve the ibadah in the text. The text comes and says you should do a particular ibadah called ghusl. So they are focusing on, is it possible to extract a meaning that it is mustahab? So I said they're giving preference to a possible meaning over the ibadah in the hadith. وَذَكَرَ أَنَ الْجَمْعُ بَيْنَ الْمَعْنَى وَالتَّعَبُّدِ مُتَعَيَّنٌ. And he said, Imam as-Sana'ani, that the hadith, to combine between the meaning and the ibadah in it, is what is required at this point. Muta'ayyan is what is required at this juncture. So that covers the entirety of it. If we look at the hadith in all its in all its shades, then we see that those that talk about wujub are apparent. They have a stronger level of authenticity. Nobody contests that. Then they are direct interpretations, not reinterpretations of the hadith. Claims about it being abrogated cannot be followed through because we don't have chronology. And whatever necessitated in the beginning of Islam for the hadith to be issued still exists till today. Poverty still exists till today. People wearing coarse and thick clothing still exists till today. People having to come to the masjid from their workplaces still exist till today. Those workplaces causing them to have stains on their clothing and sweat and all that still exists till today. Now, so the Sheikh rahimahullah says, Ahkaam al-Makhudha min al-Hadith, the rulings that can be extracted from the hadith. So he says, ظاهر الحديث وجوب الغسل لصلاة الجمعة والأصل حمل الحديث على ظاهره وتقدم الخلاف في ذلك وأدلته. Says the apparently from this hadith, what we see is wujub al-ghusl, that it is compulsory to do ghusl on Yawm al-Jum'ah. Wal aslu, and the basis with respect to viewing text is to hamlu hadith, to take the hadith ala dhahiri, on its apparent meaning. And he says, وَتَقَدَّمَ الْخِلَافِ, and we have previously talked about the difference of opinion among the scholars. وَفِي دَلِيلٌ عَلَى أَنَ الْغُسْلَ يَكُونُ لِلصَّلَاةِ. In this hadith, we see that the other supporting hadith, we see that the ghusl is for the salah. So the bab, or rather the bab of the, not even supporting hadith, the bab, but the hadith of the bab, it says, Man ja'a minkum al-jum'a falyaktasib. Man ja'a minkum al-jum'ata falyaktasib. Whoever amongst you comes to the Jumu'ah should do ghusl. So the ghusl is best when you are going out for the ghusl. When you are going out for the salah, not at the beginning of the day. It is permissible at the beginning of the day because of all the hadith that talk about the ghusl yawm al-jumu'ah. Wajib ala kulli muhtalim. Ghusl on the day of Jumu'ah is compulsory on every muhtalim. So the yawm is from Fajr. So if you have ghusl after Fajr, immediately after Fajr, then you have dotted your I and crossed your T's with respect to having your ghusl on the yawm. But it will not have hit the nail on the head 100%. If after that you now go to your work, you work hard and you sweat and you have all that on you and you come to the Jumu'ah, it defeats the purpose. If you don't sweat and all that, okay, the purpose is still retained, but the best will be, as the hadith says, Man ja'a minkum al-jum'ata falyaktasib. Whoever amongst you is intending to come to the Jumu'ah, then he should have his ghusl. However, rather than not have the ghusl at all, having the ghusl after Fajr and going to your work and coming to the Jumu'ah is better if you don't have an opportunity to have ghusl after that. You're going to your office, there are no bathrooms in most offices, that you can use, then, dot your I's and cross your T's with having your ghusl in Yawm al-Jumu'ah. وفي دليل على الغسل يكون للصلاة ويقدم عليها وهو الصحيح, and it is to precede the salah, and this is what is correct. لأنه مقصود لها لا ليومها, because what is intended is the salah, not the day. خلافا لظاهرية الذين يرون أن الغسل يكفي ولو بعد الصلاة. And this is this understanding is in contrast to what the Zahiriya say. They say that the hadith says ghusl yawm al-jum'ah wajib ala kulli mukhtalib. So even if you observe that ghusl at the time of Asr, before the end of Asr, it is still the day. It is still the day. It is whatever. So we'll say this one is what we talked about, the Zahiriya, not allowing the context to allow to cause them to pivot. So yes, it is the day, but for what? What do we do? What do we do with the hadith that says "Man ja'a minkum al-jum'ata"? Definitely, that one is Salatul Jumu'ah. It's not whoever amongst you intends to come to Friday. You don't determine if you come to the day of Friday or not. It's Allah that determines that one for you. You wake up when He gives you life on Friday. So it is not you determining to come to the day of Jumu'ah. So what you can determine to come for is the Salah of Jumu'ah. Is the Salah of Jumu'ah. So that's next is فيه دليل على أن الأفضل أن يكون الغسل قبيل الذهاب إلى الصلاة. It's the same thing as the previous one, that the best is to have the ghusl just before jetting out for Salatul Jumu'ah. So where, as I said, if this isn't possible, we say it is the best. Where it isn't possible, then you can have it at any time before that is practical. Once it is after Fajr. Once it's after Fajr, you've entered the day. You've entered the day. But the best is just before jetting out for the Salah. Number 4, من حكمة المشروعية هذا الاغتسال يستدل على أنه ينبغي للإنسان أن يأتي إلى مواطن العبادة والصلاة على أحسن الحال وأجمل الهيئة. Said one of the things that is extractable from this in the Sharia or legislation of this having one's bath is that it points to the fact that when you want to do any act of ibadah, that it is befitting. We want to do any act of ibadah or go to any place of ibadah that is deserving for a slave of Allah subhanahu to go to such places or such acts of ibadah in the best of appearances and the most beautiful of appearances. As Allah says, Ya Bani Adam, khudu zinatakum inda kulli masjid. O children of Adam, take upon yourself the best of adornments, your adornments, when you go to every masjid. So the masjid there is the place of worshiping and also the act of worshiping. So every ibadah. So we don't, this, we talked about that, I think, in Ramadan, when we were talking about, how do you push your ibadah forth to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and make it easy, make the acceptance of that ibadah most likely. The ibadah, whether it is dua or salah or anything like that. You do it in the best of ways, following the Sharia and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You adorn your best of garments, and you speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the best of ways. We talked about this. You push things like sadaqah and things like that, other ibadah, like you want to make a request, do sadaqah, do recitation of the Quran, conform with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has asked you to do, then push these things forth. So having the best of our appearances, is one of the things that aids when you are interacting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you're supplicating to him, requesting one thing or the other from him. Number 5, the last. أن مشروعية الغسل لمن أراد إتيان الصلاة. Says this ghusl that we're talking about is for the one who intends to go for salah. أما غيره فلا يشرع له الغسل. The one who is not coming to the mosque because he has a valid reason, like the woman, for instance, the dhuhr that she performs in the corner of her husband's room is better for her than coming for Salatul Jumu'ah, even if that is in the mosque of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, therefore, because she's not coming for Jumu'ah, and she's also not one of the people of Jumu'ah ordinarily, it is not haram for her to come for Jumu'ah. None of the scholars have said that. So, however, what is best for her is to pray Dhuhr at home. If she comes, it is accepted from her. So, since it is, if she's going to pray al Dhuhr at home on the day of Jumu'ah, then Ghusl Yawm al-Jumu'ah is not compulsory for her. The hadith says, "Man ja'a minkum al-Jumu'ata falyaghtasil." وقد صرح بذلك لفظ الحديث عند ابن خزيمة في صحيحه وهو من لم يأتيها فليس عليه الغسل. The version of this hadith in the compilation of Ibn Khuzaymah is in his Sahih, the Sahih of Ibn Khuzaymah says, and whoever doesn't come to it, whoever doesn't come to Jumu'ah, فَلَيْسَ عَلَيْهِ غُسْلٌ. There's no compulsion of ghusl upon it. This is another hadith that talks to the compulsion of ghusl, i.e., alayhi, upon him. That is a duty that you're supposed to do. So it says فَلَيْسَ عَلَيْهِ, then there's nothing upon him of ghusl. So I think that should end it. I don't know if let's see Tayseer. Strangely, the Sheikh rahimahullah didn't put any fawaid under this hadith, Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen. So we'll end the class at that. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.